Welcome back to the Fire Drill. Before we get started about what we talked about, Michael, Alan, and myself, I just want to thank Dormy Workshop and PowerPoints, two of the great supporters of Fire Pit Collective and what we're doing and the Fire Drill. Dormy Workshop, artisanal, as I say every week, club covers, putter covers, awesome stuff, been great to us. And then PowerPoints, great app. Go download it. Go make par. It's a new way of scoring. It's pretty awesome. So, as always, thank you to them for their great support. This week on the Fire Drill, we talked about the hero. We talked about Casey Martin and whether Tiger would ever take a cart. And we talked about Adrian Meronk. And we talked a lot about Polish golf. We talked about how many players are ranked, whether he's on the team, what he's going to change. Is he going to change a country? And then we went from laughing about that into a very deep conversation about Tiger and what he's been through in his life and what it means to all of us and what he means to the game and what his scandals meant. And some of it is good on the outcome of what it meant to me, and Michael and Alan get very deep about whether that should ever have been in the media. It is a really good conversation. I did a lot of listening as much as I can. Sometimes I interrupt and talk about what I want to talk about, but it was really good. Never know where it's going to go. We talked a long time about Tiger and a lot of the things that he's been through. So it was super awesome. That's what I love about this podcast is that you never know where it's going to go. We don't do any preparation outside of a few notes to each other. And it went in a direction that we never thought it would go. So that's it. It's great. It's awesome. That's why I love this podcast. And here's the three of us talking golf.
Gentlemen, it was going to be a big week. We were all excited to watch Tiger Woods play golf for the first time in ages. He had a WD from the World Challenge. We didn't get to watch the GOAT in action, but we heard him at various press conferences, and he popped up on the telecast, and he was pressing flesh and being the consummate host. But Michael, what do we make of the state of Tiger Woods this minute?
I don't think we're going to see this guy play a lot of golf in the future. I say with sadness because I know it's very important to a lot of people, myself included, and very important to Tiger. But just to read his body language, to read his body while he's walking, and what he actually says, if you can't walk 72 holes, how are you going to play tournament golf? And how does it get better from here? So sadly, if he could play 2 or 3 majors this year, it's a lot. And then the really big question becomes, well, what does he do with the rest of his life to make it meaningful?
Yeah, that's deep. I mean, Ryder Cup captaincies, President's Cup captaincies, hosting more tournaments, being Charlie's caddy. He'll have a role in golf, but it's not the one, as you say, that we would like. I mean, let's just talk about the cart situation because I kind of course, it was vintage Tiger, a little woofing in the press conference. I can hit any shot you want. I just can't walk. I mean, why not just take a cart? John Daly does. Casey Martin did. There's precedent for it. Why is he being so stubborn on this point?
Yeah, I don't get it. I was super bummed. I really like Tiger. I'm a huge Tiger fan, but the Casey Martin thing is a real bummer. I mean, Casey Martin just had his leg amputated. And the fact that he voted against that is it's a super drag, man. It really is. I get why he doesn't want to take it, and I understand it. No problem. But I guess it's two separate issues to me, Alan. Is if Tiger doesn't want to take it, I get it. That's his pride. He's a very prideful guy, and it's not a disease or something like that. I just really think that Casey Martin being in that conversation is just not part of what's happening here. Like, Casey Martin doesn't have a leg. Like, the guy legit needs
he was born with this degenerative condition, and Tiger's wounds are self-inflicted. It's definitely a different scenario. But you could say John Daly's, his lifestyle choices probably led to him
100%.
not being able to walk. And I mean, I guess the question, it's a philosophical thing. I mean, a golf tournament is just they record the golf shots. It's the number of strokes you take. The walking in between, it's central to competition from a fatigue standpoint, I guess, and the wear and tear. I mean, that's part of having to survive the marathon of a tournament week. But walking between shots is not integral to how we keep score. I don't know. I think you can make the argument that if Tiger wants, if he would have a change of heart, I don't think anyone would have any problem with him taking a cart and playing 72 holes and hitting, 276 golf shots. But Michael, I know you as our traditionalist feels differently.
No, it's not even that. It's just, we're all students of Tiger here. It's not about what others would think. It's just really about what Tiger is in Tiger's heart. It's not even, Ryan, it's a great word, pride for sure, but it's even more than that. It's just who Tiger is. I mean, this dovetails exactly with why you could offer Tiger Woods, I would like to think, $1 billion, and he wouldn't go down that live road, because he's someone who looks back a lot, to look back just into the very near past. A golfer he really admired was Jose Maria Olazabal. Olazabal had a bad toe. It put him on the sidelines for well over a year. He missed major championships, really, when he was in the prime of his game. And he never thought once about asking for a dispensation for a cart. I think, Tiger's models are, in a way, Jones, certainly Hogan, Olazabal, Arnold, who was very much opposed to using carts. And I just think it's central to Tiger's personality type that golf is a walking game, period.
Yeah, I respect it, but it's I don't know. I mean, Tiger is a prisoner of his own mythology. He mentioned it this week. Oh, well, Daly took a cart, but I played at the U.S. Open. I won U.S. Open with a broken leg. So I think he's painting himself into a corner here. You just can't go back on that. But
his mythology is who he is. So what you're asking him to do here, I totally understand what you're asking, why you're asking, but what you're asking to do to him, he couldn't actually be true to himself and do it. Somebody else could. I would agree with you, Ryan. Casey Martin, when he was suing the tour for the right to use a cart, just let him use a cart. What's the big deal? I mean, I believe that society, if it can be accommodating, should be accommodating. But that's not a statement on what's in Tiger's heart. So I think it's very interesting that he has no interest in it.
Yeah, I totally respect the fact that Tiger doesn't want to take a cart. Totally. I understand it. I get it. And I understand that that's who Tiger is. I guess I came at it from two completely separate things. Totally understand why Tiger's not taking a cart, and totally bummed that he voted against Casey Martin. And it is what it is. I mean, it's
if Tiger won out of a cart, I think he'd put an asterisk on his own victory. So I don't think he would think it's a meaningful win. If Sammy Sosa used a cork bat, I mean, it's not the same thing.
I just think I come at it from my own perspective. Like when Matt Janella and myself and a couple others went to Pinehurst, we played 8 rounds in 4 days. We played all the courses there at that point. This is way back when. And we mostly walked, but I think we took a couple carts because we were just chasing daylight and this and that. And at the end of the trip, you just add up the scores, and we paid out all the bets, and there was no asterisks on who rode and who walked. And obviously, we're not talking about the U.S. Open, but to the fundamental of the game is hitting the shots, counting the scores. And to me, I personally would not be bothered if Tiger took a cart, and I wouldn't assign an asterisk to what he had done. I mean, you still have to play the shots, and he's already, he's got 1.5 legs, and he's already at a huge disadvantage, and he's got a fused back, and he's got, he's the bionic man. So I don't think there's an asterisk needed, but I do agree, part of the reason we used to talk about Ben Hogan in 1953 is because he survived the bus accident, and he had to sit in an ice bath after every round. And, that's part of it is preparing the body. But it's an interesting conversation to me.
And just to follow up on that thought about Hogan, this is one of the most interesting Hogan quotes ever. And as I get older, I've come to appreciate Hogan more and more. I am the judge of my own standards. It's a famous quote is from Hogan, and that's what Tiger is saying here too. I mean, I guess to Ryan's point, he's not really, because he's saying no to Casey Martin as well. But he is saying to us in his own way, I am the judge of my own standards. So I think there's something very admirable about that.
He's going to use a cart to the father-son, which is not really in anyone's mind that different than the Hero World Challenge.
Does Charlie take a cart? Does Charlie ride in the cart?
No, Charlie walked and Tiger rode. I'm saying is the World Challenge that much more of a serious competition than the father-son? I mean, to Viktor Hovland, yes, but to the world at large, I don't know.
Well, Tiger would definitely say yes. You may not like it, but you get world golf ranking points for the Hero event. You absolutely do not.
You get a lot of points, actually.
you get a lot of. Just one quick note. I probably have made this point before, but I've had a fantasy, and now it's really going to prove to be a fantasy, that when Tiger turned 50, he would take the 3 senior majors, the U.S. Open, the Senior British Open, the Senior PGA Championship, seriously, and make it a thing to try to win all 3 eventually, or win 3 in 1 year. And I thought he could really elevate those events, which I think are already terrific events. That's not going to happen either.
No. All right, well, you mentioned world ranking points. Let's go there, because I, of course, was rooting for Scotty Scheffler to win the World Challenge, because he would have gone back to number 1 in the world based on the copious number of points he would have earned by beating 19 guys, most of whom are on vacation. Because I root for chaos at all times, and that would have just been delicious.
And you root for the story.
Root for the story. It would have been a great story. I mean, all these live guys are getting pounded because they want world ranking points, and they're just passing them out by the bushel in the Bahamas. It's a little wild, and it doesn't quite jibe with the narrative that's been constructed around all this stuff, but it's good fun.
My tweet was, after Viktor won, is Viktor just won his 2nd straight guys trip. I mean, like, it's a guys trip. It's 20 guys. They all stay in the same resort. They're hanging out. It's the end of the season. No one could give a shit less who really wins. Like, yes, I get it. In the final round, like, there's some pressure. You want to win. I get that. They're competitors. But like on Thursday afternoon, no one cares. No one cares. And the fact that you get world ranking points for an unofficial event, it's not even a PGA Tour event. This is Tiger's guys trip, right? Like, it is I mean, listen, I'm not here to defend Liv, like, literally not here to defend Liv, but it is a slap in the face. If we think that this is not a joke, it's 2 times the live events are 2 times the field size, and there are 18 less holes, and we're saying that's not allowed. But this is, it's insane. I mean, it's so ridiculous. The more you look at the official world golf rankings, the more of a joke it's kind of becoming.
Well, and I mean, I've covered Tiger's event a handful of times, and guys are putting a little effort early in the week, and then the first round, anyone who shoots like higher than 71, they're like, I'm out. I tried. I don't have it. And then day 2, anyone who's more than 7 back, like basically 20 guys, maybe out of 20, maybe 16 care at the start of the week. After Thursday's round, you're down to about 10. And after Friday's round, there's about 7 or 8. And on Sunday, there's only 4 or 5 guys who care because they have a chance to win. So it is what it is. But
a win at the Hero meant so much to Patrick Reed that he brought a 15th club.
Yes. Bada bing choo. Like, I wish I could make a better sound for Michael Zingers, but yes, indeed. Well, I mean, for Viktor Hovland, it's not a bad win. Like, he's a guy who's still trying to build a resume. I think he's trying to. I was out there walking with him at the old course, and it was a little discouraging to watch him retreat. I mean, in that moment, I mean, this is maybe the best driver of the golf ball on the planet. He kept hitting hybrids off the tee and irons. It's like, Viktor, what are you doing, man? He was playing so conservatively. And
did you actually say that to him because that would be weird.
I said that to myself. I should have. Like, someone needed to say something to him. Didn't look like he was playing to win. It was so strange. So I think for a guy like him, it is meaningful to when you have a chance to close, you close. That has value to a Viktor Hovland.
And you're going to and your status with Tiger is going to be raised. Will go up, and that's a positive.
Oh yeah, these guys live for validation from Tiger. So now he's won it twice, and in future Ryder Cups when they're interacting, like I think you're right. I mean, Victor's gonna be like, I've shown this guy what I can do, and there is a weird energy around Tiger that guys have to get used to his presence, and so for Viktor, good for him. But
I mean, Vic, listen, again, he beat 20 of the top 30 players in the world. I get it. I mean, he beat 20 guys. He beat 19 guys. Like, I don't know what it validated. 19 and 10 of them are there to like have fun and have a vacation with their spouse. I don't like, again, I just don't.
Do you think, Ryan and Alan, do you think Tiger would have a hard time drawing the field he draws if there weren't world ranking points being offered?
100% that's why they are offered, I would guess. Yeah. I don't know anything about this, but I would guess 100% that's why they're offered.
I mean, if you look at the history of the World Challenge, initially there weren't ranking points, and he still leaned on his buddies and they showed up. So I think that he would get most of the same guys just because he's Tiger effing Woods and they want to kiss the ring. And if these guys have any self-awareness, they know that their third home, their second Ferrari, and most of their net jets is due to Tiger Woods. And so I think it's just showing respect in the way. I mean, even guys who would show up for Byron Nelson's tournament when he was still alive because of Byron Nelson. You saw as soon as he died, that field just cratered, and they don't have the same connection with him. It was just a showing of respect. So I think Tiger would still get a terrific field. You might lose a couple guys, but now that there's world ranking points, it's a no-brainer. And half these dudes have a house in Albany. It just has become a whole, as Ryan suggested, it's just become its own little event that's fun and a little bit of a lark. So
it would have been so cool to hear Tiger say, or say in the future, 18-man field, no cut. We don't deserve world ranking points. I remember once during a rain delay. Once at Augusta, thunderstorm came in, and Tiger was deep on the course, not that deep, but he might have been on like 15T, and a band came by, and he was playing with Thomas Bjorn, and Bjorn said to Tiger, "Oh, they've got a band for us here," and they were both playing like dogs, and Tiger said, "Do we deserve a ride in from the way we're playing?" And I think they hiked up the hill, but that's just how he is. And I think Tiger knows he doesn't, quote, deserve that PIP money. It's a joke. And he must know at some level that these points are a joke. But to really put your money where your mouth is and not accept them, that would be maybe a bridge too far, but it would be cool.
Everybody was looking for, what's the FTX's CEO's name? Sam?
Yeah, Bankman, yeah.
Yeah, Bankman. Rappaport wrote a article about it, that everybody was on the lookout for Sam. And Jimmy Dunn
was he in the field?
What's the deal? Or he's hiding out there. He's avoiding prison by hiding out there.
Yeah, no, that it is a world unto itself. Like one of the power moves in the history of sports journalism was when Wright Thompson was trying to. Well, he did write a terrific Tiger story, but he was pursuing him. He actually chartered a boat, and you wouldn't call it a yacht, but a good sized boat to take him from, I guess, South Florida to the World Challenge, just so he could be in that same marina as Tiger and kind of penetrate one of the layers of access and get within the bubble. And he didn't get that much out of it, but I love that we still live in a world where a reporter charters a boat chasing Tiger Woods. So maybe someone from the Financial Times should try that, or Fortune, like that. That's how you do it.
I mean, we all track Tiger's plane, so like we're all plane and boat trackers at this point.
I know, it's pathetic. Well, since we're on the topic of Tiger and the live subject has been raised. I mean, it was interesting that he used the exact same words as Rory in his press conference, talking about Greg Norman, who of course runs Live Golf. Greg must go, and it was almost like they workshopped the phrasing together, Tiger and Rory on the back nine at Seminole or something. And it's interesting that we all know that Norman is a bit of a pariah, and he inspires feelings, and he's clearly a thorn in the side of the PGA Tour. But to me, it's very interesting that Tiger and Rory have made it so personal. Because is this about business or is this personal?
Alan, does that is the presupposition there that you believe it? Do they really think that?
I think it's just posturing. I mean, I think it would be helpful, if they're going to try and somehow forge a compromise. I think probably Greg and Jay Monahan both should probably exit stage right. You bring in fresh blood. They can say, okay, the new guys can say, hey, all that nastiness, we didn't mean it. We're here to make peace. Like, I don't know if it's mandatory, but it would probably be helpful. But I think it's a reflection of how effective Norman has been, that he's so under their skin and in their heads. Like, if I'm Greg Norman, this is like a feather in my cap. I feel more secure in my job, not less.
I love Norman's response this week from, I think it was Golf Week. I don't know where he said it, but Norman said he doesn't care or think about Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. Like, okay, first of all, obviously you do. And second of all, it's just so Greg Norman, right? Like, the little I know of him, just like the public persona of just saying you don't care about Tiger Woods. I mean, the pettiness on every side, from Jay on the down on the tour side and Greg on down on the live side. It is just as my colleague Alan Shipnuck would say, a gift from the content gods. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't see how, Alan and Ryan, I don't see how that is a genuine statement on either of their parts, Rory's or Tiger's or anybody else who would say it. Because what you have here is an entire threat to your ecosystem and the PGA Tour as we know it. And you've got literally millions of fans, golf fans across the world, who are our lives as fans are sort of hanging in the balance because of this whole thing. And you, two well-known golfers, extremely well-known, fabulous talent golfers and best-known golfers on the planet, are going to put this whole thing on hold because of one guy who doesn't even hit a shot. It's just not believable. I think they must realize that Norman's not going anytime soon, and that it gives them time to stall and try to figure out what's next. Because the way I see it, Live, the courts will be the courts and they'll have a lot to say here, but Liv's got all the cards because it's got all the money. And Jay Monahan said that himself in June. If this is a fight about money, we can't compete because they've got a lot more money than we do. So I don't buy it. I don't think it's a genuine comment on their part. I think it's a clever stall tactic.
Interesting. To me, it sort of diminishes Rory and Tiger to some degree, but Rory's been set up as the conscience of the sport and this noble figurehead. And why is he rolling around in the mud with Greg Norman? Like, I think he should be above that. And it makes him look kind of small. They list him at 5'10". He's already about 5'8", but it makes him look even smaller to me.
Right, because if he's going to go down the road of we're actually going to need to have some kind of compromise here. Greg Norman, no matter what you think of him, he's not evil. You just don't agree with him. So it just, I don't know, makes no sense to me.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Roy's the one who has been banging the drum the loudest about, there's got to be a middle ground here. And he thinks that he's trying to facilitate the compromise, but I think he's complicating it because Norman is very tight with the two guys who run the public investment fund who are funding Live. I mean, they are thick as thieves. And I think their allegiances are with Greg. He brought them the idea. He's brought it to life. He's pushed all the right buttons. I mean, of course he said some dumb things along the way, but I don't think they're bothered about that. And it's been by any measure a smashing success. So I think they're committed to Greg Norman. So if Rory's serious about wanting a compromise, I think this just makes it more complex.
Alan, I got to fact check two things on you. I got to fact check two things on you here. At the very beginning, you said that Tiger Woods is the GOAT. Not everybody agrees with that, and there are people who would not agree that this Live Tour's inaugural year has been a quote smashing success.
Okay, that's hyperbolic, but considering that it didn't even exist until March, when you look at the players they've signed, you look at the amount of traction they've gotten in the media, the energy.
Can I finish the sentence? Smashing success.
Smashing success. Now, as a competitive offering to fans, I think we can all agree it's a little lacking. But I think they're light years ahead of where any of us thought they would have been. So.
Yeah, and they have arguably the best player in the world playing for them. Like, no one thought any of that was possible. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't even think there's
that is true.
I think if Cam Smith and Rory McIlroy played head to head on 10 different kinds of courses and 10 different conditions, I think Cam would beat him 7 out of 10. So,
wow, what?
Yes,
Cam is really good.
He just has a gift for scoring that Rory, to me, it really comes and goes.
And I love Cam. Cam is kind of becoming, like, of all the people, I don't really miss a lot of people that have gone to Live, but Cam is definitely, not only his play, obviously, but he just seems to be like a down-to-earth kind of dude. Like, they had the videotape, if you guys saw it on Twitter. Michael's not on Twitter, but like, he's watching a replay of himself in a bar, and he's obviously hammered drunk. And he's just like a good dude. And then he didn't realize there was another cut at the Australian Open this week. And he's like, they said, "Why'd you play bad?" And he said, "Yeah, I had too many beers last night. I was hungover." Like I can just get down with a guy who's just a dude and is really good at golf. Like, yeah, I won last week and I've been partying for a week. So don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no, I know it's going to be fun to watch him in the majors next year. As we've talked about before, the imports to majors has gone way up. We're going to bring all these players back together, reunify the game 4 times a week. And the friction and the energy around the majors is going to be spectacular. And Cam's tailor-made for Augusta National. Any firm, fiery, open course on either side of the ocean. Like LA Country Club is not a traditional U.S. Open course. It's not tight like that. There's room to play. The green complexes are amazing. Like, it's going to be Pinehurstian in that it's going to be a lot of finesse and a lot of scoring. And like, I'm not suggesting Cam Smith's going to win the first 2 legs of the Grand Slam, but he's dangerous. Oh wait, no, the PGA is before the U.S. Open now. Anyway, whatever. The point is, Cam Smith is going to be a keynote player in the majors, and it's just going to add to this whole thing.
And to Ryan's point, they have these different criteria for how you win the PIP money. They should have something for how unpretentious you are, because they're all so pretentious, except for Scotty Scheffler. You can't believe it. And Cam Smith would do very well in that category. He'd be the best. They all take themselves so seriously. It's so dull.
Yeah, that's well said. Let's see. Well, thinking about the world of golf at large, it's big news in Poland. Like, Poland's going crazy. They finally won an Australian Open.
Wait,
Ryan, you're the only
did you call your friends?
You're probably
did you call your friends
anything about the new Australian Open champ? Can you tell us anything about this dude other than he's really tall?
I just want to know who you called in Poland to know that they're going crazy.
It's creative license. This is the novelization of what just happened. We're bringing to life what it should feel like. Now, the reality is they're probably not going crazy in Poland, but I hope hopefully one bar they're going crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And how is golf in Poland? Like, is that a popular sport in Poland?
It's a short season, man.
It's a super short. Here's what I learned. Like, I didn't know that people from Poland are called a Pole. Like, I just assumed they were like Polish or I don't know. I didn't know Polish, but Adrian Meronk is the first Pole. It's weird to say, to win on the DP World Tour. He won the Irish Open. He went to East Tennessee State. He played on the Challenge Tour for a long time, and now he's won the Australian Open and ruined many people's Sunday because they wanted to come see their favorite son, Adam Scott, roar to victory, and he got demolished by a 6'6" pole.
Well said. And
Perfect.
it's perfect. And not so. It's one thing to win a tournament. When you win on courses like Kingston Heath is one of the 20 best courses in the world, and Victoria, where they played across 2 courses. Victoria is absolutely wonderful. That was Peter Thompson's kind of hangout. There's a great statue of him overlooking the course, and Victoria is absolutely wonderful. I'd gladly play there the rest of my life every day. So, when you win on these big time courses, it's significant. I think that this is the guy we're going to have to take seriously, and hanging over all of these Seamus Powers and these other guys who are popping up this year is the Ryder Cup's, what is it, 9 months away now? Like things are getting serious. So the jockeying for spots on the Ryder Cup has definitely begun on the European team. And I don't know. We'll have to do a deep dive on golf in Poland at some point.
But he's also playing his way into representing Poland in the Olympics.
I don't think there's a lot of competition, to be fair. I mean, it's great. You're going to represent your country in many things. Hold on. I will hold while you guys talk. I'm going to see if there's any other. How many Polish golfers are in the OWGR?
Yeah. Well, so and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of whether the Olympics are good for golf or not. But, I was in Rio. I was hoping to go to Tokyo, but because of the COVID stuff, it just was going to basically be a prisoner of a tiny hotel room. So I skipped it. But the thing that was cool in Rio was it really meant a lot to these golfers to be there. And it was a kind of recognition that is hard to come by because they're not going crazy in Poland. Nobody even knows this guy won the Australian Open. However, if you're an Olympian, that has meaning. Like I'm sure that Poland is strong in a lot of the Winter Olympic sports, and the title Olympian has value in places where golf does not have a strong culture. And so if he does get to the next games and that goes on his resume, and if somehow he has a great week and sneaks a medal out, like that's monumental. That could change the shape of Polish golf forever. So, I mean, we're sort of joking, but like this is where the Olympics is really cool because in these countries that do not have a rich golfing tradition, everyone knows what the Olympics are, and everyone knows what a gold and a silver and a bronze medal mean. And so,
witness what did for Rory Sabatini in Slovakian golf.
When we go over to report the Polish golf travel log, we're going to see what exactly it did for the Slovenian golf scene. But no, I mean that made that whole thing so much fun. I mean, Rory Sabatini at the Olympics was a gift from the content gods. I mean, it's I still can't believe that happened. And
who in Slovenia agreed to it? Who was like, yeah, that's fine.
It probably took like one person to rubber stamp the whole thing. I don't think it was a big bureaucratic process. They were happy to have him. Unlike, the PGA Tour and Rory's brethren over here. They're like, yes, please, we love you. Come on over.
I can't find the new, this is total sidebar, but the new OWGR site is as bad as the rankings for the Hero World Challenge. I mean, that site sucks now. You used to be able to find it by country, and I can't find it. So I'm just going to assume that Adrian Meronk is one of the few Polish pros, I would assume.
Yeah, right now, but who knows what's coming? I mean, this could be like Sari Pack. He could change golf forever. You just don't know how rich the pipeline is of talent.
What's happening to the Norwegian pipeline?
Oh, with Viktor? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's the thing and that's another spillover from the Olympics is that, all these nations have funding for their Olympic programs. They take it very seriously. And now that golf is an Olympic sport, I'm sure that all these smaller countries are helping to grow the game, to use our favorite phrase. And so, Viktor Hovland is definitely a threat to win a medal at the Olympics. And if that were to happen, that would be a monumental deal. And so, yeah, it is. It's probably, I know our colleague Jordan Perez has wanted to write a big story about all the different federations and how it all works. And I'm going to call her after this podcast because we're raising some interesting points here. Like what's bubbling under the surface, like anecdotally, when the games went to Rio, all the national federations in South America and Latin America started pumping money into golf because they realized, if you want to compete in a team sport, you need so many players. Like to try and win a gold medal or even a bronze medal in basketball, like you need so much talent. But it only takes one guy with a gift to bring home a medal. It's a good investment. If you're trying to match dollars per medals, like golf is a very good investment. You just need one guy to do it, and it doesn't need any teammates. Doesn't need that much infrastructure. So I think we may be onto something here accidentally that there's stuff happening that beneath the surface in all these smaller countries, and it'll be cool to see how it plays out.
All right. Well, I just found I've searching on the OWGR for Adrian Meronk and Polish players, but I just found out there's an Albanian pro, one Albanian pro, and he made a cut in a Canadian Tour event this year. Who knew?
Yeah.
Sit sidebar.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, golf is such a meritocracy. If you can keep shooting 66s, you're going to find a way. And so that's what's cool about it. You really can blaze your own trail.
Adrian Meronk is 56th in the world currently. And I mean, he's going to be in the top 50 after this win easily. I mean, it's just wild. He's really, I mean, East Tennessee State, I read a story about him today. He was kind of discovered by, I can't remember the coach's name, but he's a Ledbetter disciple. And he was on a range looking at a bunch of kids, had no thoughts or didn't even know about Adrian Meronk. Instead, he saw him at the end of the range, and he could just tell by the way he was hitting it that he was different than the other kids. And is still his coach to this day. That was like when he was 15 years old. So went to East Tennessee State and then played on the Challenge Tour, like mediocre for a couple of years, 3 years, and then finally got his card. And here he is waxing Adam Scott at the Aussie Open.
And oh, by the way, did you note who is on Adam Scott's bag these days?
Oh, Stevie is back.
Stevie's back. Michael, I think you have more of a relationship with Stevie than almost any other writer. It seems like he will actually answer your calls or your emails. Like, how have you established this chemistry?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: I don't know really where it started. Maybe here we at Sports Illustrated, when Al and I were at Sports Illustrated together, we would sometimes help athletes in different sports write first-person pieces. And he wrote a first-person piece about his experiences caddying for Adam. And I interviewed him and wrote it up in his voice. But then he took it really seriously, and he's very bright. And, I think a lot of us had the impression, but probably rightfully so, that he was half a thug based on some of his behavior when he was caddying for Tiger Woods. He was sort of Tiger's enforcer. And it's a very significant but. There's a very thoughtful, intelligent, and really, really golf knowledgeable side about him. I mean, there are, actually, as I'm thinking, there are other things as well. So some of the crude comments he made about Phil Mickelson and various other things. But leaving that aside, he's like everybody else. There's multiple sides to his personality. And by the way, Adam Scott, wouldn't have a crude thug on his back. He just wouldn't.
He's so genteel, Adam.
Yeah. Now maybe Now, many of us would remember Steve Williams caddying for Adam Scott. Alan, what was that? What was that Open that Ernie won from the car park? Was that Lytham?
Lytham, yeah. When Adam bogeyed the last 4 holes.
Yeah, you could see Williams was more pissed than Adam Scott, and Adam Scott was plenty annoyed. But anyway, I just think it's very telling that Adam Scott would want Steve Williams back on his bag. And Alan, you made this point the other day. There are 2 caddies who are actually really significant figures in this game today: Steve Williams and Jim Bones Mackay. It's neat. It's interesting. They do it very different ways, but it's just another way for us to enjoy the game. Seeing these guys in action.
Well, the ultimate showing of machismo and like hyper masculinity was Stevie at the Masters wearing the white jumpsuit with no shirt underneath and just showing all the chest hair. And like, it was like, it was so old school. I wonder if he'll bring it back, but I always was amazed that the green jackets let him get away with it. it was very provocative, and it's certainly, it kind of fits with. It's part of why he was a great match for Tiger, because Tiger kind of exuded that energy as well. And Stevie walked fast. He's a big dude, and he always had a scowl. He was always barking at fans, which admittedly he kind of needed to do. There was always an element of chaos around Tiger, especially in the early years. And, it was a good pairing, Stevie was in better shape than Tiger. I remember at Kapalua one year, I was just kind of hanging out, and he came huffing and puffing and drenched in sweat. And Butch Harmon was there. This is like, I don't know, Tiger stopped playing that tournament pretty quickly. So this was late 90s or whatever. And Williams, they had some bet whether he could jog the entire back nine up and down, which has incredible hills. You had to go on the cart path and do the entire back nine. And it was like in 22 minutes or something insane. And he did it, and he won the bet, and like took a Benji off of Butch. And it's like, that would put any of us in the hospital. But so yeah, there was some sort of chemistry there with him and Tiger that fed the whole thing, I think.
I bet you Steve Williams, in his own way, probably has something he, quote, still wants to prove to himself or to golf or whatever it might be. Because, and Alan, I think we've talked about this moment, and Ryan, I don't think you and I ever have, and I don't think too many people know about it. But the Open in Northern Ireland that Shane Lowry won up at Portrush, Tiger was practicing in the rain. It was insane, and he had his little entourage around him, including Joe LaCave and various others. And Steve Williams, Tiger's practicing. Steve Williams is walking, right from right to left, and he just says hi to everybody, and everybody acknowledges Steve Williams walking by, just in a sort of an appropriate way. And Tiger would not stop and even make eye contact with him. And he had to know that Steve Williams was there. And I think Steve was hurt or pissed or both. And I can understand why, because they did have a lot of good years together. And I think sort of their thing has eased over the years as well, but obviously not completely. And, it would be interesting to know what really actually is motivating Steve Williams to come back at this point.
Yeah, for sure. He's a very righteous dude, right? That was the breakup with him and Tiger was everyone just assumed everyone around Tiger was in on shuttling women in and out. Logistically, you just assume they all knew, they all had to know, they all had to be enablers. And Steve Williams wanted Tiger's camp to put it in one of the public statements that Steve had no knowledge of the situation, and they didn't do it. And Steve Williams was so pissed off about that. That's really why he, in some ways, just quit on Tiger, because it was this personal betrayal. Best man in his wedding, and
but he has said that consistently. I don't have any reason not to believe him. Do you, Alan?
No, I don't. I have no knowledge of it. When the scale of Tiger's infidelity and you would think that a lot of people had to know, and obviously his buddy Byron Bell was booking plane tickets for Rachel Yucatel and stuff like that. But on the other hand, Tiger was such a mystery to everyone. You never saw him. You never knew where he was staying. It's quite possible that they shook hands at the golf course and they didn't see each other until the next morning. And so, but based on how righteous that Stevie was about it, it has the ring of truth. Because
that's how I feel.
That's how I feel. Yeah,
I'm glad you said what he said, because it's commonly thought. Now, what is it commonly thought? It's commonly thought that Tiger fired Steve Williams. Is that correct? Is that what people typically think?
I don't know. I think in Haney's book, it's pretty clear, that Stevie was the one who initiated it, and
for sure. Because he went to work for Adam Scott while he was still employed by Tiger Woods. He went to work for the enemy, and that was tantamount to quitting.
That was quitting, yeah. But then, they never recovered from the scandal, and that was such a strain.
Right.
I think
right.
I don't think working for Adam Scott wasn't the cause; that was the symptom. But it is an interesting footnote, and it's funny that we're trying to ascertain the motivations of a caddy. On some level, they're just carrying the bag, and they're just there to. But
not in this case.
Not in this case. You're right. He has a different station in the game, and And so there's just a layer of intrigue there. And
it's kind of weird, Alan, even to be talking about, quote, the scandal now, because, and Alan, you and I have talked about this for getting on 10 years now, but it's so obscene, our interest in Tiger's sex life. I mean, honestly, I thought it then, and I still think it now. And when you think about this hole it took on Tiger's life, I mean, what right was that of anybody's to be exploring his private life like that? But it really did turn his life upside down. And, and now, here, this is a totally different thing, but that car crash 2 years ago, it turned Tiger's life upside down, and now that's a different scenario altogether. And that's something people never talk about, and I can understand why, because it's so depressing. But
it's dark.
It also it is.
Well,
dark.
Michael went super serious, but I agree. Tiger and who he's banging is between him and his wife at that time, and I never got it. I never got the apology. He didn't owe me anything. Like he owed his wife and kids an apology, not me. And I just never got it. And that's why I just don't get Stevie Williams being, I guess he didn't want to be involved for what reason. He had nothing to do. Like, I would never think differently of Stevie Williams if he did or did not know about it. So I don't get that. I never got the whole scandal. Like, again, is it right? No, of course not. But
maybe the greatest athlete of all time across any sport. And that scandal had a profound effect on his career and on the golf course performance. So that's where it seeps into the public view, because it completely derailed the greatest golfer who's ever lived. And
I guess that part I agree with Alan, but I just don't. I like the apology. Derailed his career. Okay, and it was like some weird text messages and all that stuff. Is like,
I'm not saying we have a right to know, and the whole thing was way over the top. But when Tiger's out there selling Buicks, and he's got the kids buckle up in the back seat, and if that's the image you're selling, and then I think what America hates more than anything is a hypocrite. So if you're selling yourself as a family guy and this paragon of golfing gentlemen and all these virtues, and then it comes out that in fact you're something else, that's why, if like Derek Jeter was out on the town every night with a different girl, nobody cared. He was a bachelor. That was part of his brand. But when you're, when you pass yourself off as something that you're not, that's, I think, where people object, and they felt betrayed. And, again, was it Tiger's idea to have that Buick commercial? Like, there's a lot of forces that he probably just got swept up in. And even in the moment when he's filming, he's probably like, oh, this is kind of weird, but you just go with it.
Alan, I'm glad you made that point. And many did at the time, and many would today. He was selling himself as one thing, and he really was something else. And that put people on edge. I would still go back to what Nicholas said at the time. It's his private life. Why should we care? But there's a lot to be said for what you just said.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is that the reason we're so invested in golfers, it's not because one hits a 7-iron better than the other. Tiger's whole story, it's, growing up, not feeling welcome at these private clubs, and Earl jangling the change in his backswing, and the hug at Augusta. Like, it's their private lives and their family lives that frame the whole story. Just like, why was the 95 Masters meaningful? It's because, Ben Crenshaw and Harvey Pinnock, and, it's like, we care about athletes as human beings. Like, that's why we're invested in their story. And right or wrong, that's just how it is. Phil winning the 2010 Masters, well, Amy has cancer. Like, that's why everyone was crying. And so when you have the heartwarming stories and you have these great victories, and they're defined by the personal lives and the family lives, and the players dine out on that for a long time. But then there's another side to that, when you run astray, and there's the drugs, and there's the girls, and there's all this other stuff, then that's gonna be part of the story too. And so you can't only write about athletes when the warm and fuzzy things, because it's their personal stories that are so compelling.
I mean, looking back on the scandal and all it is, this is very like just a personal feeling. It made me like Tiger more from the standpoint of we had him on this pedestal as some perfect person, and he's flawed just like all of us. And he seems to be a better father. Maybe he has possibly addiction issues or whatever, but that's all. We know these people. My aunt was an addict. We all know somebody who was an addict. Like, he seems to be a better father. He seems to be a better girlfriend. Do we know that for sure? No, I don't know. It's not my business. But it seems to be that the scandal and the accident and his addiction he's a flawed dude. And that's okay. We're all flawed. Like, it made me like Tiger more. Not the things he did, just that he was flawed. He screwed up and he tried to become a better person, it seems. So I don't know. Like, who he's banging is just not my business.
Yeah, well, I fully agree with that. It's, but it's interesting. I mean, that was 13 years ago now, right? It was just time of year, right? It all went pear-shaped around Thanksgiving and into early December, and it's one of the great what ifs in sports history. Like, what if Tiger never hit the fire hydrant? And if that stuff had never gone public, and who knows where he would be. And, the addiction issues that followed, is that related to lingering depression and shame and all these things? Like, who knows? It's a wild turn of events, and we're not psychologists. We just play them on the internet, but it's hard not to wonder how things would have been different.
I hope one day that Tiger writes his true feelings, not because like we deserve to know or what was happening behind the scenes, just like what he felt. Was it depression? Was it, like he was held up to this being a perfect person, and he was obviously, I'm sure, in some ways ashamed of the things he was doing behind his wife's back and those kind of things. I would just be super interested, but obviously it's never going to happen because he represents so many brands and those kind of things. He's just very, defensive about, not defensive, but he just isn't very open. But I would love to hear about what led up to, the things behind the scenes, just of what he went through, why he felt the things that he did. So, wow, this got heavy.
Well, you know, Ryan, that Tiger at one point was signed up to write a book with a writer who is like a psychoanalyst, a guy named J.D. Moringer, J.R. Moringer, and it didn't happen. But Moringer wrote Agassi and wrote Phil Knight, and to sign up with Moringer is to say, I'm going to spill the beans to you, and not spill the beans. That's a crass phrase. Just be truthful and examine my life. And in the end, for different reasons, I'm sure it's either on hold or isn't going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, well, it's fascinating. I mean, it's left to the novelist's imagination to kind of wonder some of these things. I will say there is a novel out there called The Swinger. Two of the guys on this podcast typed it, and it does go into the heart and mind of a cross-cultural golfing icon whose life is torn asunder by a tabloid-fueled sex scandal. So there are some answers in that book, I think, if those are interested. But
it's interesting, Alan, because we've got a sports editor in that book who says, what kind of job are you guys doing if you just weren't telling us anything about the guy that you were covering, which we weren't. So, I mean, you made a very, very good point, Alan. It's really easy for me to forget that big, broad, major point because they're not politicians. They're not clergymen. They're just professional athletes. But they are sort of duping the public. They are professional salesmen. And just one general thought, if I may, we're probably wrapping up here, but when Live has brought a lot of emotion to a lot of us in a lot of different ways. And one reason is we don't like to think of professional golfers, or maybe I should speak for myself, as grubby, as money hungry, as I want the money. It's not supposed to be like that. Or I don't think it's supposed to be like that, but it turns out it is like that. And personally, I find it disappointing. I shouldn't be surprised at 62, but I am.
There you go. Yeah, well, this is the thing about the Fire Drill podcast. We start in Poland and we wind up in Tiger's psyche. So you never know where.
Just for the record, I want to make it clear that I finally found there's 2 players on the OWGR from Poland with points. Okay, there's a bunch listed, but none of them have points. So there's 2. It's Adrian Meronk and some guy in the Challenge Tour. So he is going to change. He is going to change Polish golf forever.
Adrian Meronk, agent of change. I love it. Before we let the listeners go, we should mention that if you've come this far, you seem to enjoy our podcast. And here at the Fire Pit Collective, we have another podcast, Need a Fourth. It's Michael and myself, Jeff Ogilvie. We bring in a different guest every week. They drop on Wednesdays. This week is a guy named Brandel Chambly, very polarizing Golf Channel analyst. And it was... I'll let you, Michael. I don't want to speak for you, but I thought it was a fascinating conversation where we saw a different side of Brandel. He was so thoughtful and on air he can be confrontational and spicy, but he was just, I think he just enjoyed talking about the golf swing, talking to Jeff and nerding out. And what were your thoughts about that pod?
I totally agree. It was, the thing that made Brandel is he loves golf and he loves the golf swing, and he went deep, probably in large part because Jeff was there, and he and Jeff speak the same language. If you like Michael Murphy, and that was really special, and I'm not comparing Brandel with Michael Murphy, totally different personality types, but it's really an opportunity to hear Brandel. I would say at his best. It's terrific.
Yeah,
I think that's what makes the show as a listener, may I include, but as a listener, that's what makes the show good. Like Joel Damon's goofy and also like introspective, like funny, and Mike Murphy's way too deep for me, but like people loved it. And Brandel Chambly is going to be very good. So I mean, like that's what makes the show is like you're not going to get the same person. You're going to get people nerding out and very deep and funny, and I mean. It's great. It's great. I'm obviously biased.
Well, thank you, Ryan. So, all right, this was another Sunday Fire Drill. We appreciate the listeners sticking with us here to the bitter end. We do these pretty much every week. The digressions are fun. Definitely didn't think we were going to go in the direction we did with Tiger, but that was fun. I mean, we haven't talked or thought about Tiger in that depth in a while, and he's the defining athlete of our lives and our careers, and we could talk about Tiger forever. And it's always changing, it's always evolving, and it's always interesting. So, for Ryan French, who's somewhere in Middle America, Michael Bamberger, we never know where he is.
Undisclosed location.
This is Alan Shipnuck in California. This was the Fire Drill podcast, and we'll be back at it next week. Thanks for listening.